So our sediment bowl is ready to go in. Our valve is off. And so actually what I'm going to do, because there's so little fuel coming out, is now that I've got this sediment bowl loose enough I can spin it by hand, I'm going to just spin it off and spin on this new base and be done with it. What's going on, guys? Welcome back for another week's video. This week we're back on the 530s fuel system. We're gonna get the sediment bowl changed. We're gonna get the fuel lines changed out, and then we're gonna crank this beast up, and we're going to get it out, get it warm, and we'll get the carburetor adjusted where we're happy with it. So if you've watched the last couple of videos, you're going to kind of see a little bit of a weird timeline going on. The carburetor's half back together right now. I'm waiting on a new kit for it. If you watched last week's video, you'll already know what went on. But basically, we found out this tractor has a DLTX 86 on it. It's supposed to have a 99. We ordered a kit for a 99. And that ended up having a couple wrong parts in it. Primarily the throttle seal shafts were wrong. And the throttle shaft seals, sorry, were wrong, and the retainer for that seal was wrong. So we had to order another kit. Those will be, as of the time filming, those will be here tomorrow. And so I'll get the carburetor put back together and actually get it on and film the first start and all. So you're going to see the carburetor in the first couple of clips not on the tractor, and then it's magically going to be reinstalled. That's why there's an odd timeline going on here, just because of when we had to order parts. So first things first, we're going to get the fuel drained. It's got about 5 gallons of fuel in it right now. So we're going to get the fuel drained out of it, and then we'll get the old sediment bowl off, the old fuel line off. And then I've got barb fittings on the bench over here behind me that we're going to put in the new sediment bowl. We'll get the new sediment bowl put in, and we'll get a fuel line put on it, and then we'll get the fuel put back in it. And we'll do just a quick run through, make sure we've got fuel to the sediment bowl through the fuel line, and get an inline filter put on it, and then we'll pick up with the carburetor once it's installed. So I'm gonna get turned around here and we'll see you guys in a second. All right, so kind of first things first, we're gonna get as much of the fuel out of it as we can before we pop the sediment bowl loose. And so I've just got one of these cheap 5-gallon pump or battery operated pumps, and I'm just going to pump out what I can. All right, that's probably about as much as we're going to get. I'll let that drain on down. And we'll just flip the pump around and set it right there. And I'll get it out of my way. Basically what we got set up here, we know there's still some fuel in here. So what I've done is, this is just a forma funnel. And so I'm basically going to sit here with a drain pan and catch what comes out of this sediment bowl once I crack it loose. That should sit here for the moment if I don't mess with it too much. At least enough, maybe not. We might spill a little bit of fuel, but that'll be okay. All right, so we're going to get in here with our Cobras and see if we can get that sediment bowl nut loose. Well, maybe. There we go. getting the right size, that would help. There we go. Okay. Pour that fuel out. Set the old bowl over there. And then I think our next best move is going to be get this fuel line loose. I think it's 1/2 inch. Yes, it is. That one is anyway. So the one behind it, 7/16. Or 3, yeah, 7/16. Cool. Okay. Okay. We can do away with that fuel line because we're not going to use it anymore. Now, take our bail clip off, so we don't need it anymore. Actually, I'll change my mind based on how little is actually coming out of there. I really thought there'd be more fuel in there than that still. Let me see if I can find a wrench that fits that. Okay. Are you 3/4? You're bigger than that. Cool. Oh, wait, that was the wrong wrench. Yeah, you're 3/4. Everything seems like it's the wrong direction. Okay, before we get him out too far, what I'm going to do is take our new sediment bowl. I get most of my parts from these for 2 cylinders from Lynn Brothers or Schumacher's Tractor. We occasionally get stuff from Steiner. Where I can, though, I try to support Ryan and Dale and Tyler. They tend to have better quality parts than Steiner does. So I'm just going to take some Teflon tape and wrap the threads on our new sediment bowl base. And all I did was just take that's probably plenty. And in fact, it'll be easier to do this. I'll set him right there if I do the barb fitting while I'm at it. That barb fitting, actually, I'll tell you the part number. The barb fitting I got from Amazon, it's an 1/8 inch pipe to 1/4 inch barb. I'm sorry, not from Amazon, from AutoZone, and the part number is 072010. Just a pipe thread to barb tubing adapter. Like I said, it's just 1/8 inch pipe thread. And I'm just going to wrap it in Teflon tape as well. Make sure we don't get the inlet for the fitting covered. And then I'm just going to take and screw it into our sediment bowl base and find my pliers wrench, because Nip-X is the best for everything. And tighten our barb fitting down until it's just snug. And then give it about a quarter of a turn more. That's about all I want to do. Okay, so our sediment bowl is ready to go in. Our valve is off. And so actually what I'm going to do, because there's so little fuel coming out, is now that I've got this sediment bowl loose enough I can spin it by hand, I'm going to just spin it off and spin on this new base and be done with it. I should have saw that coming. I knew there was more fuel in there than that. Well, now I'm just going to smell like gas the rest of the day. That's fine. Won't be the first time, won't be the last, and I have oil dry. It's what floor dry is for. All right. So, my original plan, let it be known, was better. I'm going to keep that in, though, because you guys can laugh at me. Yeah, I knew there should have been more fuel in there than that. That actually makes me wonder. Ah, yeah. I don't know if you guys can see down in there. The sediment bowl is plugged up with sand. That's why it was only trickling out. It led me to a false assumption. All right, and I'm just going to snug him up because I don't think I can safely get another round out of it. What did I do with my wrench? There it is. We'll find out. I don't think I can get another round out of it. Okay, right there's about where we want to be. Floor's got floor dry on it. I smell like gas. That's the first of many dumb things y'all will see me do on this channel, I promise. Should have stuck to my original plan. Okay. Get our bale up here. Get our bowl in. Get our bale seated. Get our sediment bowl tightened up. Okay, we should be good there. So now, I mentioned in the start of the carburetor video when we tore it off what we were going to do. I don't like the metal fuel lines. I have a really hard time keeping ferrules from leaking, even brand new ones. What we're going to do, like I said, I've got a barb fitting on this sediment bowl now. What we're going to do is we're going to actually replace the metal fuel line that was on this tractor with 1/4-inch rubber fuel line. And we're going to cut us a long enough piece to get to the carburetor, and I'll cut it in half, and we're going to put an inline fuel filter in it to catch any remaining sediment that gets out of the bowl. So I'm going to take my cutters and square up this end and get it pushed on there. And we're going to want our filter somewhere right around it there. Square that end up. There are multiple better ways to do this than using side cutters. That I know. Now, what did I do with the filter? So, like I said, we cut our piece of fuel line. It's going to go from the sediment bowl to the filter. And then we're going to put an inline filter in. We're going to use a Napa 3031 inline fuel filter. So we're going to look and see that our fuel flows this way through the filter. So this is the end that goes towards the sediment bowl. So we'll take our hose clamp, stick it on the hose, and slide it in there. And then I'll take I believe this is a 1/4 inch nut driver. And just tighten that clamp down. And then I'll come up here to our sediment bowl and do the same thing. Okay. And then now our fuel inlet, let me turn the camera a little bit. Our fuel inlet's going to be about right here. So I'm going to cut a piece of fuel line that's going to be plenty long. And we'll just leave it open on the end for right now until we get the carburetor back together and are ready to put it on. Okay, we'll take another hose clamp, slide it on. Is that better light? Yeah. And we'll just slide it on there. And then take our 1/4 inch driver again and tighten it up. Okay. So with that, our sediment bowl is in and tight. Our bowl nut is tight. All of our hose clamps are tight. Our connections all have Teflon tape on them. So what I'm going to do now is set you guys back up where you can see, and we're going to take the bucket of fuel we pumped out, pump it right back in the tank, and we're going to check all this for leaks, make sure we have flow. I'm just going to run it out into the drain pan that I caught some of my spill in. Not all of it, but some of it. Next thing we're going to do is take the bucket of fuel that we pumped out and set it there, and take the hose off our pump and stick it back up here and pump our fuel back in. Alright, and that's about all it's going to willingly pump out, which is fine. That is plenty. I'm going to set our pump over here where it can drain on an absorbent mat. Okay. Now, there's just a little bit of fuel in there. I'll grab a funnel and drain that in a few minutes. But actually, instead of using that drain pan, this should be good clean fuel. I'm going to crack our valve and see, good, we have no airlock, which is more than I hoped for. And there we go, we have a good clean stream of fuel coming out of that sediment bowl. Through the filter. And out the end of our hose. And our sediment bowl is no longer leaking, which is great. All right, I'm gonna let that sit there and drain for a second. I'm gonna go grab a funnel. Got a funnel. Yeah, it's drained enough. You can drip out whatever's left on the floor dry. And I'm just gonna drain this last little bit of fuel all over my hand. Cool. Today's just not my day. Well, that's all right. This tractor needs a bath when we get done anyway. All right, guys. So what you just saw was changing the sediment bowl out, changing our fuel lines. So we're ready to go back together as soon as I get the carburetor together. Kind of like I said earlier at the beginning of the video, we've got a little bit of a weird timeline thing going on. As far as y'all are seeing it, the carburetor's already back on this tractor. But as far as how I'm filming it, the carburetor's still apart on the bench over there. I'm waiting for another kit, like I said, to get the right throttle shaft seals. So once I get that, I'll get that put back together. We'll get it in. We'll clean these gaskets off, get it back in. And then the next clip y'all see will be turning gas on and firing this thing up. All right, guys, so as you can see, our fuel system's complete. I've gotten all our stuff out of the way. I set the light down. I probably should have brought it over here. But our fuel system's back together. You can see there's a little bit of crud that's fell out of the tank already, so we may one day have to pull the tank on this and clean it up. But we're going to try this for right now and see what it does. So we got our new sediment bowl in. It's not leaking. And then we got our new 1/4-inch rubber fuel lines in. We got hose clamps all the way in. We have an inline Napa 3031, I think was the number. I mentioned it earlier in the video. Carburetor's back on, choke's hooked up, throttle's hooked up, bowl's on. We set the float height in the last video. So I think we are ready to turn fuel on and make sure we don't have any leaks in the carburetor. We've already tested the sediment bowl up through the filter, but we'll make sure we don't have any leaks in the carburetor anywhere. And then we'll gap our spark plugs just to double check that. Throw our oil bath back on and we'll be ready to get this beast going. So I'll go ahead and crack our fuel. I hear it running into the bowl. Not feeling any leaks. We're not leaking around that plug. We're not leaking around any of our connections here. Our bowl nut doesn't seem to be leaking. Our lower plug seems okay. Our bowl gasket's good. And I believe the bowl's full. So I think we're good on the fuel system. That sediment bowl's all the way open. That's where it's going to run. So I'm going to temporarily just turn the fuel back off and reposition you guys, and we're going to check the gaps on these spark plugs, and then we'll be ready to get this beast out. Let's check the gap on our spark plugs right quick. Are you the side that's got a 5/8 in you? Yes, you are. We'll pull our covers and our boots off. And then We use Champion D21s most of the time, mostly because that's what our Napa keeps in stock. I've run auto lights in these. I have no real problems with them. Just like I said, the Champions are what our Napa tends to keep in stock. So those are just easier to get. You can see our new plugs are pretty clean. And we're going to set our gap to, if I can find the feeler here, because for whatever reason Harbor Freight set's not in order, to 25 thousandths. So we're going to take a 25 thousandths feeler gauge. I think you can see that. And we're just going to slide it in here. And that's pretty good. I just tweaked it ever so slightly so the 25 thousandths slides right in and back out. And we're just going to put our plug back in. Take our 7/8 socket and snug it up. Don't go ham on these, you just snug them up. Pull our plug wire out. Into that wire. Did not feel like it was going on the plug. There we go, now it's on there. I was right, it wasn't going on there. And then we take and put our cover on. And for whatever reason, this side has a 5/8 head bolt, which I think is a 7/16 bow, I think, in it instead of the normal 3/8. Who knows why? But yeah, the other side's got a 9/16 head, which is a 3/8. Who knows? All right, I'm gonna move around to the other side, check that one, and then we'll get the fuel turned on and we're gonna get this thing out. Okay, we got our spark plugs gapped. We got our fuel system checked for leaks. We did have a minor intermission for a bowl gasket. I didn't film changing that. I just changed it out. It actually wasn't the bowl gasket. It was the bowl nut gasket. I accidentally reused the old ones instead of the new ones, so I just dropped the bowl off and put new ones on. So I didn't film that. Let's see if the battery's charged enough to crank this thing. Bowl should be good and full. Or if I'm going to have to put the battery charger on it. Oh, actually, hold on. Before I do that, I'm going to put the oil bath. Let's put the cup for the oil bath back on. Before I forget. Because I will forget if I don't put it back on right now. There we go. Okay. Now let's see if the battery's charged enough to crank it. Clutch out, give it a little fuel. Ignition on. Contact. and grab you guys, and we'll go for a little spin. Alright guys, so we're going for a spin. I hope you can hear me over the tractor. Straight pipes are loud. So we're going for a spin. We're not warmed up yet. We're going to run around until we get good and warm, and then we'll start adjusting. But I can already tell I need a little bit less load fuel and a little bit more idle fuel. And the way I can tell that is I'm running with the choke pulled out just a little bit, which means I'm way too rich on the load. Because it's pulling, I know it's pulling off the load side, even to run it idle right now. And that's because I don't have enough idle fuel, and I can tell that by let's get up here on the flat and I'll show you. If I drop the throttle back, it starts dying out. And what that is the carburetor's not delivering enough fuel, and the governor's not quite overcoming and opening the throttle up to run on the load side because it's so low. So if I run it back down to idle, we're actually pretty close there. As it's warming up, it's getting better. There that. It needs just a little bit more idle fuel. Not much, just a very little bit. That puff of black smoke is definitely an indication we've got too much load fuel. So I'm going to ride it around a little while and get up the temperature, and then I'll meet you guys back at the shop. Alright guys, I'm going to walk back here in the shop, so hopefully you can hear what I'm going to say. Y'all can sit there and look at the tractor and listen to it from back here. So, the way I adjust carburetors is not the way the book tells you to do it. The book tells you to short one cylinder and adjust the idle. I don't do it that way. I just adjust it kind of by ear and based on how it seems to want to run. So what we learned while I was out riding it, based on where we're at right now, is we're a little bit rich on the load. We're puffing some black smoke, and I'm having to run with the choke pulled out. Not a lot, just a very little bit, but enough that it's noticeable. Because it starts backfiring as soon as you push the choke all the way in. Next thing is it needs just a little bit more idle fuel. It wants to die at low idle, and the transition's not quite as smooth as I want. It's very close. It doesn't need much. So we're gonna turn the idle screws out on both cylinders like a quarter of a turn. We're gonna turn the load screw in about a third of a turn, and then we're gonna get out and run it again. One thing we did learn that I didn't know is the coolant gauge on this tractor doesn't work. So to verify that we're up to operating temperature, I'm going to take my temp gun and shoot the water pipe. We're at 180 on the upper, coming out of the block, and 100 on the return. So the thermostat's open. So we're up to operating temperature. We're at the point we can adjust this carburetor. So for adjusting the duplex carburetors, because we're so close to the block, I just wear some coated gloves just so I can touch that valve cover if I have to. So I'm just going to come in here and turn the load screw towards the operator. Oh, sorry, other way. we'll go a half a turn. And then I'm going to open the idle screws up about a quarter of the turn. I'm going to take the choke off and lower our throttle. See where our idle's at there. The other thing I learned is our throttle stop is set just a little bit too low. So I'm going to screw our throttle stop in just a little bit. A couple of turns where I can hold the throttle against the pin and it doesn't want to die out. So that's good right there. I'll back it off just a little bit. Basically, I'm just going to sit here and play with it until I feel like it's happy. Okay, we're going to try that right there. So I'm going to back you guys up. All right. So I backed you guys up and stood you up where you can see. So I'm going to run the throttle range now. We're going to watch the smoke and we're going to see. We're going to listen to what our throttle response does both on the ramp up and the slowdown. I'll adjust my stop just a little bit. And bring the throttle on back. I think we're going to be happy with that right there. Okay, we're going to be real happy with our idle right there, I think. What I'm going to do tomorrow, and I probably won't include it in this video because I'll fiddle with this a little bit more. I'm gonna let it cool overnight, and then I'll come back out here tomorrow and crank it and see how it does cold. And if it's a little bit sluggish cold, I'll give it another like third of a turn on the idle, and then I'm gonna leave it alone. The only other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take just a little bit more load out of it. I'm going to take it back to 2 turns instead of 2.5 and try it again. Turn up our low idle just a very little bit so we're idling smooth. And we're going to leave it right there. So that's how I adjust carburetors. I just do it by ear. Generally, the settings they give you in the papers are pretty close. All I did today, based off of what the paper gave us, is I turned the load actually down half a turn from where it recommended, and I turned the idle up a quarter of a turn from where it recommended. So we're 1 1/4 out on both idles, and we're 2 turns out on the load. We're going to leave it there and see what it does. Right now, I'm very happy with it. So we'll get it, like I said, I'll crank it up tomorrow when it's cold and try it again. But I'm going to go run it around one more time and see what it does, see if we're happy with it, and then I'll get back with you when we're back in the shop. All right, guys, so we're going to wrap up our first series on the channel and our first series on this 530 here. Oh, that's nice and warm behind me. So we got the fuel system all taken care of. Our carburetor is real close. I'm still going to fine tweak it, but I'm not going to subject you guys to 20 minutes of footage of me continually tweaking carburetor. It's real close. It needs a little bit of load added back, possibly a little bit of idle. We'll see. I want to see how it cranks, like I said, when it's cold, and we'll go from there. So, like I said, we're going to wrap up our first series on this 530 here. And the next thing we pick up, whenever our parts finally get here, because I'm still waiting on parts from Deere, shims and gaskets, we'll tear the sheet metal off and dig into the power steering on this tractor. So that's going to be the next video whenever it comes up, hopefully next week, but we'll see when parts get here and when I get a chance to film. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this series. I hope you learned something about a carburetor, especially a 2-barrel on these old 2-cylinder tractors. And I'll see you guys next time.